right, here we go. This blog is entitled Hidden Gems and Questions in Movies Like Harriet and Queen and Slim. And this is really motivated by some similarities that I saw in the stories that I want to kind of talk about, and really a gem. And I'm going to start off with I'm going to start off with what I thought was really a hidden gem. I was talking to somebody, shout out to my boy Lane Fobbs. We're millennial, he was able to get to talk to the producer of Harriet and ask his burning questions about why they rolled with Cynthia for the role of Harriet and why they wrote the character Big Along. And it was in that conversation that I had with him, or not really with him, had with somebody else about what he did, that I, talked about some of the elements that were lost in the whole conversation. And after seeing Queen and Slim, it made it even more important for me, or more burning for me to mention. Of course, I'm not going to say Harriet is a perfect film, but I will go on record and say that the Big Along character, the casting of Cynthia Erivo, was not enough to destroy the film. That said, I do think the conversation about it, I do think the organizing or the lack of organizing of the protest around it wasn't helpful for the greater environment. One of those things that it wasn't helpful was, I think there was gems in the story that we missed because we were distracted with something, a pseudo protest. It was like a group shade. I don't know who called it, so I'm going to say Tariq Nasheed, but that may be giving him credit for something that he jumped on. Either way, it was, nobody called it, nobody takes credit for it, and all it was just people raising an eyebrow. And because of that, we lost this one good gem, and that was when Harriet Tubman got in the room with the other abolitionists, and they put her name on the wall, and they wrote down how many Africans she liberated from human trafficking, or slavery. And they were talking about, hey, we about, to get this war started, Frederick Douglass, and he was talking to William Still, about the possibility of getting the North to go to war with the South. And it didn't really make it prominent that they understood that if the North and South were to go to war, that the South would lose and would have to liberate their kidnapped Africans. Thus, the reason why Frederick Douglass and William Still were pushing for that. They didn't really make that known, and I put on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, who freed more Africans from torment of slavery, right? And Harriet Tubman gets credit for over 3,000. She is no short, and she did those firsthand. However, when you look at what Frederick Douglass was able to do in terms of suggesting to Abraham Lincoln to include in his war propaganda that it would end slavery, thus if the North won, there wouldn't be no slavery. And when the North won, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. There you have it. That's a great liberator right there. And regardless of which one you like the best, because I don't get into it, I just thank them all, and Harriet Tubman definitely was the most gangster out of all of us. But, it is what it is. And so that conversation that they had in the ready room reminded me of in Teaneck in Elizabeth, in City College, various war rooms that I've been in. You know, when I say war rooms, I'm talking about being in there with Reverend Sharpton, being in there with Jesse Jackson, being in there with representatives from the Nation of Islam, and talking about with James Small, you know, at the City College takeover, you know, where people can get killed, people can get locked up, your lives is on the line for the things that they're strategizing, regardless of who you want to call sellouts, snitches, beneficiaries. Yo, there's a lot of people that did not do what a lot of people who did things for us to get liberated have done. Bottom line, people have risked more over drugs than other people have risked over the liberation of African people in this country. And regardless of whether it was slavery, regardless of whether it was Jim Crow, regardless of whether it was Reaganomics, stop and frisk, whatever it is, education, yo, people put their lives on the line. And when they're putting their lives on the line in those ready rooms, and I'm not talking those slick typing Facebook armchair revolutionaries, I'm talking about people in the room who had me intimidated, right? So when I saw Harriet Tubman going off and even side checking Frederick Douglass, telling him he don't remember it or how it was to be in slavery, you know, that was real. Not that she didn't do it, of course she did it, but the activity of revolutionaries risking their lives and plotting around it, checking each other hardcore like that is real. I witnessed that on more than one occasion, and it was just beautiful to see it on film. One of the reasons why I like seeing it on film is, when we do that and we still respect each other, like Frederick in the movie, they didn't have him come back at her. He certainly could have come back at her and say, yo, your little efforts to free slaves, you know, Africans in Virginia and Maryland ain't doing jack for South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. And he could have ran through. He said, yo, what we're planning is for everybody to get, you know, liberated. Now, I say there's no right. They both right. However, what does that mean for our liberation? It means that we have more than one way to fight this struggle. And I think that's a valuable lesson. One of the lessons was she didn't call Frederick Douglass a coon. She didn't call Frederick Douglass, you know, a sellout, Uncle Tom, all of those. And Uncle Tom probably wasn't even a slanderous term back then. But she didn't do all of that. She just stated her case. He didn't call her names. Nowadays, if you don't revolt, if you don't join the protest the way people want you to protest, if you ain't boycotting Harriet, right? You know what I'm saying? Guess what? You are a coon. You coon dancing or whatever. Whatever Tariq and the crew like to call people, because it's not just him. There's a lot of people that love to call people coons, you know what I'm saying? And I tell people any day, you can come for my black card if you want, but I need to see yours first. If you can out-Trump me, then cool. But at the end of the day, the act of trying to Trump me over something that you don't agree with, that is not cool either. So you're making yourself not look cool, because in the movie Harriet, they were able to get over their differences. They let her do what she was doing. He still processed every African she brought. He documented them. They didn't stop her. They planned around her. That's how we have to do it, in my opinion. And that, to me, was one of the biggest takeaways from the film. We up here arguing over some bigger long. Who gives a heck? He is a fake character. There was African people that owned slaves, okay? Owned other Africans. There was Native Americans that owned other Africans. And as a person that comes from both of those trees, sure, that's facts, right? And that's worse than catching an escaping one. But at the end of the day, there was bigger gems than that. There was bigger gems. So that was one of them. And then in Queen and Slim, I'm going to switch gears. Queen and Slim, and this is probably the reason why I can't post this video right away. I may wait till Sunday. It's been a long couple of days, so a lot of people may have seen Queen and Slim that were going to go see it. So this is spoilers in a sense. You know, I'm not going to tell you everything about the film, but it does, I am going to respond to one particular element. And that was just kind of the whole journey, right? When we look at, you know, Queen and Slim, they shot a police officer. They was on the run in America, trying to get from, I'm going to say, Chicago, Detroit to Florida. And how they ended up going through Georgia, I don't know. But they ended up detouring through Georgia and then getting to Miami, only to get stopped feet from their escape plan to get to Cuba. And just like the movie Harriet, it was a black man with a beard that betrayed them. And that to me is a problem, or is interesting. And their journey, in the sense that, you know, they depended on people that were on the underworld, right? One uncle looked like he was a pimp, and other one looked like he was a drug dealer, right? And I just feel that with the gravity and the politics of it, and this young lady, she may have come from humble and ratchet beginnings, right? Her uncle is a pimp, and her mother may have been up into the world too. So not to throw shade on that, but she's a lawyer, right? She went to law school, and she's also working in the field of law. To me, if you understand the gravity of a white cop getting killed by black people and what that means for this country and society, then you also understand that there's organizations fighting racism already. And for me, if you're running from the police, yes, it's a beautiful dream to do what Assata Shakur did and escape to Cuba. But if you know Assata Shakur and this legend that she escaped to Cuba, you also know that she was a Black Panther. You also know that she was in an organization. And sure, you can piece together underworld people to move around and live in the underworld of America, but you also understand that there's a top world too. There's organizations like the Nation of Islam, there's organizations like the NAACP. All these organizations, as soft as you might think they are, right? Nation of Islam don't carry guns, they're very peaceful. But as we saw with Malcolm X, they are able to stand and hold their ground. They're an organization that speaks very frankly about the situations here of black and white people relations. They don't call white people devils as much as they used to, but in the time that they did, they held the ground, held it down, calling them that. The NAACP, as much as you might want to say, oh, NAACP and Black Lives Matter, they still held it down. They got a gangster legacy in this country as well. And so for me, I think if you was a lawyer, I would say, look up the NAACP, find out, can we hide in your houses? You know what I'm saying? I think they would have pieced together a more reputable underground railroad, you understand? Without using greedy-ass drug dealers who aren't really revolutionaries. He ain't no Bumpy from Godfather of Harlem, so why are you going to trust him? That's me. You understand what I'm saying? I think our drug dealers have lost their revolutionary element. And it was right after Nicky Barnes, because I don't know. I think Frank Lucas and Nicky Barnes and that generation of Harlem drug dealers became drug dealing black business people. They didn't have a Malcolm X whispering in their ear revolution. You understand? So I think that had an impact on them, thus had an impact on the whole environment. So to me, it was sad when I saw Queen and Slim not thinking of any type of revolutionary. Now later on, that's just my feeling. Later on, I'm gonna get into the drug dealer and a bigger long comparison, and why do I think those two were in the movies that they were in. Because I'm like, that's crazy. But anyway, I just wanted to drop that. little frustrated with the ride of Queen and Slim. I think it speaks to where our millennials are. They don't really feel that the older generation has their back. And it's evident in the movie that she made where on the run, they couldn't think of any black person doing anything that would be able to help them on an organized revolutionary level. And to me, that was sad. All right, y'all. Let's talk later. Peace.